Hi everybody, my name's Alex. I also go by Mako. We're here at my studio in North Hollywood, and I'm a songwriter, composer, producer, and an artist.
Thank you so much for being with me here today.
Absolutely.
We're going to be talking about the amazing world of Riot music and the creation of the one and only NewJeans gods. Let's start from the very beginning. What was the first thing that gave birth to this song?
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to write these world's anthems for Riot games, which is like these stadium songs that we put together pretty much every year for like the last 11 or 12 years. League of Legends is obviously a very popular video game. They have an esports event that is second to none. It involves two teams playing against each other in a massive stadium. And Riot Games is the developer, and they think music's a really important part of the company. So we commission these big old stadium anthems. And I think up until Gods, I had probably written, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of them. And then Gods came around, and it was time to give it another run.
So are you gonna die today? Make it out alive. You gotta conquer the monster in your head, and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Legends never die. When the world's calling you. Can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die.
Let's say a certain date arrived and you and your team knew, okay, it's time to start making the world's anthem.
Yeah, so we'll usually start about kind of a year in advance, kind of like when the previous Worlds is going, we're already starting to cook and figure out what we want to do. A lot of times the marketing teams and the different people in the esports division will be like, here's our theme this year, and that's what will usually kickstart kind of the inspiration for what we're writing about. I made this with Sebastian Najand, who's like a dear colleague of mine and who's been involved every step of the way with all the things I do at Riot. And so they had, started sending us this really cool gothic imagery about like ascending to greatness and just like using all of these kind of like awesome Renaissance style dark things. And I think in no time, me and Seb just started writing this crazy choir part that is now the intro of the song, and then kind of making it from there.
So the very first thing that was written was the choir.
I think so. I think usually Seb, who's like a production wizard, will run off and start making a little bit of an instrumental idea, and I find his ideas so inspiring. Like, melodies just always pop up for me whenever he sends stuff, and so I think he started with a little bit of that beat while I started recording like 90 layers of myself pretending, oh, let's go, like just trying to be a choir, and it came together pretty quickly from there.
Can we hear it pretty quickly?
Let's see.
Mako,
yeah.
God, choir. Do you have the actual number of stems that it took? Do you remember how many times you layered yourself?
The number of stems for our anthems you never want to find out the answer for. In the thousands, easily.
Gosh.
Yeah, here's my original.
That reverb too. Is that you have the
Yeah.
like up there?
I can sing really high.
Okay.
Probably had to pitch this around.
Okay.
I probably recorded a full stack in 3 different keys and spread them down and up, and then maybe a little bit of like a synth layer of a choir also in there. There's a lot of layers. I mean, even that's probably just like 100 layers of voices.
Right. Absolutely beautifully done.
This one was a little tricky because I thought it was this whole, once you play God, which is still kind of the chorus, but I didn't have the next section for a while. I didn't have, God, God, God. I started with once you play God, did that, then backtracked to the beginning. And then when we'd listened through the journey, we were like, we're not quite there yet. Like the payoff feels like it could use one extra level. And so then I kind of double back. So you sort of dart around a little bit, but I always start with what I think is the big section of the song.
Yeah, and speaking of the big section, the once you play God, I noticed it's just like always, it's slowly ascending.
Yeah.
Is that something that just comes naturally? Or are you thinking like, I want this to be gigantic, I want it to rise up?
Yeah, like the architecture of a good melody is a really interesting side conversation. And sometimes you feel like you've planned the whole thing out, and sometimes it's like you think you're at a high point and you realize you're not, and so you got to keep climbing.
Right.
You want to create that sensation too of like there is more, that it's about to get unleashed.
I'm kind of curious. The organ-esque sound, was that always there?
A lot of it started with this Gothic Renaissance gods thing, so we're just kind of in church mode in general.
Okay, so automatically you're like choir, organ, starting point.
Brass choirs, vocal choirs, I mean, literally recorded a choir in Iceland for this, and that's like the intro sound, and we have them layered in the go, 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 like all that stuff. So this was very much about like an organ approach to the whole thing.
Once you wrote that, you knew that you had to have a section that contrasted, and then is that how the verses were born?
Big time, yeah, like big dramatic music to me is all about contrast. Like a thing is big when it's adjacent to something that's small. So using silences, or in this production, we used a lot of like hard cuts to a low sound that chokes everything off. That kind of gesture of bringing all the sound down to nothing to then explode again, to me is like, that's like what a world's anthem kind of is it's playing with those things. And our first verse, we wanted it to be really mean and capture your attention, but we can't go, orchestral full spectrum yet, because we got a long ways to go. So it's all sort of a push and pull based on what you think your big moment is.
Right, and I feel like what also sells this more minimalistic first verse is the attitude and the vocal delivery. So when it comes to writing a world's anthem, you record the demo, and then do the artists just basically take influence from your phrasing and the way that you enunciate things? Yeah,
that's kind of how we've done these, is all recorded demo. A lot of times we're so early on in the process, we don't even really know if the artist is male or female yet. We don't really know like what region or what genre they're coming from. There's a lot of things we haven't figured out, but we still need to make a ton of progress. So what I'll usually do is like record a first pass in my own voice. Hey, this is what you came for, blood on the game board. Everybody dropping like rainfall. This is your moment, eyes on the pulpit, big church just open. And they're singing your praises, la la la, screaming your name out, la la la. One more step, you're immortal now. 'Cause once you play God, they're gonna crumble one by one. Then we go right into the sun, like it's the day my kingdom comes. Baby, yeah, so that will get us a far enough distance down the road. And you're right, like the attitude was a big part of this one. So my vocal style of this is very different than when I'm recording the demo for like an Arcane song or whatever. So you're kind of like, because really what me and Seb have to do is sell this to the rest of the team where they can picture where it's going.
And I am curious, now that we've just heard your demo, can we hear the NewJeans a cappella singing that? Because I feel like they took at least some more like pop-esque, phrasing into it.
It's funny because there's these little like,
yeah.
I did those, and we did this from afar, so we didn't really get a chance to like work together. Their operation is incredible, and they're so good. But yeah, this is like.
Hey, this is what you came for, blood on the game board. Everybody dropping like rainfall. This is your moment, eyes on a puppet, kid think church just open. And they're singing your praises, la la la, screaming your name out, la la la. One more step, you're immortal now. 'Cause once you play God, they're gonna crumble one by one. Then we go right into the sun, like it's the day my kingdom come. Baby, we're God.
Yeah, there's just so many layers. Also, like, we play with kind of killing the reverbs and the effects.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, in like a really similar way as I described, just like killing the track. Just like how you deal with wetness and dryness is another element in just sort of like yanking everybody's expectation in one direction. It's almost like you create these little misdirects.
And when did choosing the artists come into play?
Yeah, so with this World's Anthem, it was a kind of unique experience. We were told NewJeans is down to do a World's Anthem. I don't know if they had heard Gods yet, or if they love League and they wanted to be a part of it. And so we sent them the song kind of assuming like, this is probably the wrong idea for them, just having listened to their music. We were very surprised when they said they were down to do it. They sent us all their vocals. We're in touch from afar. And it was a blast for me and Sebastian, because we got to just like listen to these incredible vocals from them, doing something we weren't as familiar with them doing, and then wrapping up the song and knowing we were about to kind of surprise everybody else the same way that we all got surprised. So it was a really fun experience.
So you went through the same like set of emotions that everyone else was did. Like, oh my gosh, they usually do this really quiet,
Exactly.
smooth, beautiful like poppy music, and now they're gonna do Gods.
The exact same thing.
I was kind of curious. So when they did volunteer to do Gods, did you make, other than just like the reverb changes, any sort of change to the arrangement to help boost their specific vocal timbres?
Totally, like you kind of end up needing to bob and weave with the vocalist that you have. You definitely show up with an idea of what you think your own song is, but the worst thing you could do is stick everybody to that exact same script. The first one is immediately change the key of your song to fit the vocalist. That's the most important thing. It's inconvenient because you have to sort of find a new center of gravity for your production. You got to be able to pivot because it's about, people are listening to the vocalist. They're not listening to your track first as their first point of contact. The one that I was like, I understood why we couldn't keep it was in the second verse. I did write, bad woke up and chose violence.
Wait, what did they end up changing it to?
Bad girl.
Was that the only edit?
Only edit, only lyric.
Okay.
Yeah, and we all totally understood, and we're really glad they changed it to something they were comfortable with.
Can we hear your version?
Sure, yeah, this is funny.
Hey, welcome to the big show. Next on the gallows, surrounding, baby, light him on. Breathe, 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 fall in silence. Bad, woke up, chose violence.
Before we end this, I think there's a few more layers that I would like for you to solo.
Welcome to the big show. Next on the ladder.
The little plucks. So I'm guessing like
instrumental
how
layers.
the first, the instrumental
Cool.
layers.
Yeah, let's open this up here. Yeah, it's just sidechaining around the beat and stuff. That actually sounds like a synth guitar. That sounds like something I just did on the computer.
And that wasn't there the first verse, I believe.
No, that's a verse 2 little addition.
Is it important to you to add something new every
Big
single
time.
time?
Yeah, like everything kind of needs to have a reason to exist. If you're ever in sort of copy paste mode where you're like, all right, just the same thing over again, I think you're taking your audience's attention for granted. Like you kind of want to always be like, at least for me personally, like I always want to feel like I'm giving you something like that is really worth listening to. I'm not just like, yeah, you get it. And this really applies to the vocal production too. Like every progressive chorus, and then especially by the time you get to the end, there's new things flying around in there, just so that you're like treated to an even grander experience. One thing me and Sebastian learned early on that I really took to heart, this like incredible writer named Justin Tranter, who everybody's kind of heard of, he helped advise us on our first 2 Worlds anthems, and he would just give us really like cool, quirky like notes, like take an extra bar before you like explode into your final chorus. Just little fun things that are like, oh yeah, that makes it like a little more dynamic and fun for the audience to listen if you mess with their expectation rather than just do exactly what they predict you're gonna do. And so I've really taken that to heart, like as a whole.
Another moment, I believe it might be the end of the pre-chorus.
Yeah, so that one's a quiet one where it just kills out, and then I think we do these drum fills going into the next ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
with all that distortion.
Timing those takes forever. Like the guts have to time up perfectly with the whole gang of NewJeans going, what's your play? And you just, all those little stupid stuff that just takes forever to get right.
Well, as a big fan of this song, I thank you for all these fun little details. And if you guys want to hear more from Alex, more about his writing process, what he's done for Arcane and Riot, check out part 2 of this interview coming out soon.
In the Sting song, I use like the 5th scale degree as a pedal tone throughout. You're getting lots of dissonance when you do those, and so it's the dissonance and then the resolutions that I find really moving, but it's like you get some crunchy ones when you hold that, and I just love that.